In high school, my best friend did amateur modeling, and she usually would connect with photographers through her Instagram. One day, she was over at my house and showed me the profile of a photographer who had messaged her. It was a guy 10 years older than her, and when he messaged her, she assumed it was for modeling. He replied saying she could model for him, but that he'd much rather take her out on a date. My friend disclosed how old she was 17 at the time, and he said that wasn't a big deal to him if it wasn't to her. When she told me this, red flags went off in my mind, but she pretty much just brushed them off, saying that age wasn't a huge factor for her either, and that her parents had a bit of an age gap as well. Fast forward, this guy says he had to go to Colorado for a photo shoot, and that he would love to meet up sometime when he got back in town. She talked to him for months, keeping me updated on how she really liked him. When I checked out his profile, it was filled with photography, but barely any pictures with his face included, which in hindsight was definitely a red flag. My friend wasn't going to change her mind on him though, and as her friend I share my opinions, but I also respect her decisions, as she's usually pretty level-headed and responsible. On a whim, I stopped by where she worked one night to see what she was doing later, and she mentions that this guy all of the sudden says he's flying back today, even though originally he wasn't flying back for a few more weeks. He starts claiming that he has nobody to pick him up from the airport because his flight gets in late and asks if my friend can. She's a bit unsure about it, but was really excited to meet this guy and decided that airports were safe and that she would go get him. I knew I wasn't going to sway her, and she had been talking to him for so long I felt a little more comfortable with the whole idea, but told her if she's going to go pick up this guy to at least let me go with her so that she's not alone. She agrees and texts him a heads up that she was bringing a friend. He did not like that idea. He told her that would be awkward and became very defensive. Then he said that his flight was taking off and abruptly stopped responding. Over the next few hours, we sat in her room checking that there was an actual flight leaving from Colorado scheduled, and that everything he had told her added up on paper. That's when we got an idea. We planned to go sit in the airport with disguises on in the crowd and watch for him to walk out from his gate. If he looked creepy or odd, when he texted her to pick him up, she would just respond that she couldn't, and if he looked normal, then we would just go back to the car, take off our disguises, and walk back in. We get there very early to find the best hiding spot, and there's plenty of other people sitting around, so we wedge ourselves in the back. I even asked the help desk to make sure we're at the right place. We have the flight he is supposed to be on pulled up on our phones so that we can see when it lands, and we're just killing time talking back and forth. I'm not a very observant person, so I keep rambling on and don't notice that my friend is turned pale white. She whispers to me in a language only I would understand that the guy she has been talking to is sitting next to me. His flight was still 20 minutes away. There was only one seat between him and my friend, and I was sitting in it, and he knew. We casually got up and walked to the restroom. When I went back out, he was gone. His flight arrived, nobody even resembling him got off, and he never texted my friend again. For months I was terrified he was going to randomly show up. Guy who was trying to abduct my friend, I pray we never meet again. Just this past summer, my younger sister and I went to visit family and friends out of state. My sister at the time was 16 and I'm 18. Just for some reference, my sister and I look very alike. Both of us are very loud and obnoxious, especially when we're together. Anyway, we arrive at the local airport and my parents of course freak out and worry and then send us off. We went to our local airport, which is pretty small in comparison to the size of the city we live in. My sister and I find our gate, and we had at least an hour because our flight kept getting delayed due to an emergency landing our plane had to do for someone on board. Anyway, we were just sitting around literally off on our own. The airport really isn't big at all. Once you get through security, you make a left to where some gates are or a right to where the other gates are, and they have a few shops and restaurants in between the gates. We were at the closest gate possible to where all the restaurants and stuff were located, and there had to be like 3 other gates down past us. So we were sitting alone. Our flight really didn't have many people, and we were extremely early anyway. There was like 100 plus other seats. I'm sitting on the floor charging my phone watching Netflix, and my sister is on a chair next to me doing the same, and some weird older guy just sat right across from us. Mind you, all the other seats around. The dude himself reminded me of the murderer from The Lovely Bones, except he was way skinnier, like oddly skinny. So me and my sister are doing small chats in between watching our shows, and we keep hearing the announcements about our flight, and we both keep cracking jokes and making comments like we always do and just mess around. Common for 2 teenage girls. Almost every single thing we say this guy laughs at. I know when we're together we're funny, but he would laugh at things like, "Do you want water?" or wow, this is taking a while, like not even remotely a joke. I personally am a very alert person and get paranoid easily. I'm always aware of my situation, so I kept my eye on this dude as he kept watching my sister and I, mostly my sister. I'm on my phone watching Netflix when all of a sudden my sister texts me and says, "I think this guy is taking pictures of me." I didn't even say anything back because I was a little shocked. I texted back, "Are you sure?" And she said yes. That's when my full crazy sister mode went out. My sister and I are extremely close. I would give my life for her and I don't put up with any shit, neither does she. She's very feisty, but I could tell she was scared. As soon as I looked up to give this guy a piece of my mind, he just got up and left. He looked like he was about to shit a ton of bricks. I turned to my sister asking her what happened, and she said she was on her phone and looked up to see him with his phone tilted right at her. I said, well, maybe he wasn't taking pictures, but she said she could tell just based off the way he was acting, like a teenage girl who's trying to secretly take a picture of a cute boy and isn't being discreet about it. After talking to her about it, I was angry. Like, who even are you taking pictures of, a 16-year-old? I got up and walked down the gates the direction the guy went in. I walked up our section of gates at least 5 times and he was nowhere to be seen. I couldn't find him. We texted our mom and she freaked out, telling us to tell the ladies that check our tickets and find a security guard, but I just let it go considering the fact that I couldn't even find the guy myself. The weirdest part besides him taking pictures was when me and my sister boarded the flight, the man did not. He did not return to our gate and wasn't even on our flight, so he was just sitting right across from us for literally no reason other than to be a weirdo. My dad was working a job in Austin, but my mom was home with me. I had a break in school, spring break or Christmas, so my mom and I decided to fly down to Austin to see him. My mom is a smoker, and me being 10, she didn't want me in the cigar room in the airport, which was basically a glass box full of smoke, so we leave our gate and head down that way. Thankfully, there's a bookstore maybe 10 feet from the cigar room, which also has mostly glass windows, so my mom sends me to the bookstore and sits close to the door of the cigar room so she can see me. Before we parted ways, my mom told me to send her a text message saying, "I really want this book," if I got any hinky vibes from anyone. Well, I'm a reader, so I think I'll look for a while until my mom is ready to get me. There probably won't be any issues. After about 5 minutes of being in this bookstore, I notice a guy walk in. I really only remember his gray suit and black dress shoes. I notice his shoes come over by where I am, the thriller section, so I move away to another section, where he promptly follows me again. I assumed it was just a coincidence since I was still looking at more mature books, and move over a few feet to another section where they have books on racks in the middle of the floor rather than on shelves on the wall. The guy moves over to the same rack I'm at, but the other side. My freakometer was going off like crazy, which is rarely wrong, so I do one last thing to test my theory of this guy, and I walk over to the little kids section, like Hungry Caterpillar type books, and the guy follows me again. I'm sufficiently freaking out, so I go back to the thriller section, which is closest to the checkout desk, pick up a random book, and text my mom, "I really want this book." Not 2 seconds later, I smell my mom's perfume and hear her say, "Oh good, you found something." We promptly pay and leave. Once we were away from the store, I told my mom what happened, and she told me she had seen the guy follow me across the store twice and immediately walked over because her freakometer was off the charts. She hadn't even gotten my message because she was already walking over. Before we go back to our gate, we stop at the ladies' room, and I noticed the bookstore guy coming down that hall and silently pointed out to my mom, who went on high alert. After the ladies' room, we head to our gate where we see bookstore guy sitting 2 seats down from our luggage, so my mom sat me down right next to the plane entrance thing and grabbed our stuff. After we board our plane, bookstore guy is only a couple rows away from us, but we can't really move because, well, it's a plane. Finally, we have a layover midway between Nashville and Austin. I didn't notice the rest of this, but my mom did. The guy got off right behind us and followed us to our next gate. My mom was just pissed at this point and ready to throw down with this guy, but won't because I'm with her. We verify where our gate is and our next plane's ETA and take off to the smoking area, another glass box filled with smoke, where she brought me in with her and smoked the fastest cigarette ever. Apparently, the guy had followed us across the airport to the cigar room and just stood outside waiting. We stopped in a gift shop so I could get my dad a gift and grab a drink, and he followed us there too. Finally, my mom has had more than enough but isn't going to confront him personally because he hasn't done anything or engaged us in a very serious way. So we go back to our gate where my mom tells the lady by the plane entrance what's been going on since Nashville, and she called security. These two huge security guards come down to our gate and start talking to my mom, who says very loudly and pointing, "That man has been following us since we arrived at the airport in Nashville. He's making us very uncomfortable." After hearing my mom be loud and seeing her pointing directly at him, bookstore guy takes off running, so security called for backup and followed him. Like 2 minutes later, we boarded our plane for Austin without creepy bookstore guy.